There's a little counter telling me if we're live or not. Oh, well, I think we are. Hey, welcome to the 2 month review in which we take Ed Park's book, Same Bed, Different Dreams, and break it down bit by bit, section by section for the next 8 weeks. Talk about it, analyze it, have fun, go down all the various rabbit holes. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. Are we going to start this season with hey? Like
We're gonna do
that's
the season with. Well, I don't even know if any of that got captured because the timer that I used to make sure that we're going just came on. So
well, if you've been around for other episodes, we're starting with the same level of professionalism and preparedness as we always do.
I,
So
I
yay!
would have to argue that we are more prepared. I have an intro bit. I think that I
Yeah.
can get us into this book.
It's
And
like a we're basically like a Republican candidate debate. You pretty much know what you're going to get, and you'll probably watch it anyways, just to see like, yep, that confirms exactly what I thought it was going to be.
what I expected is what's going on.
Yep, that checks out.
There's, there was a lot more variance in these episodes when we did them in the afternoon, where we'd be like, you don't know if that's coffee or beer or a
Yeah.
whiskey or whatever.
What
Those
are you
were
talking
those
about?
were the episodes, man.
There's still plenty. I'm teaching Monday, Wednesday, Friday this semester, so there's still plenty of variance on a Thursday. So
So much. So yeah. So there's a weird way into this book, but there's a lot of things that kind of tie together in it. But I want to start by talking about Taylor Swift.
but before you get to Taylor Swift, why out of all the books we could have done, why did you pick Ed Park's Same Bed, Different Dreams?
So that's a good question.
No comma after bed, by the way. It's Same Bed, Different Dreams.
Right. The comma
Okay.
is the book inside of the book. Has the comma in it, which is something that I think we can actually talk about at some point in time.
Let's not get into that yet. Yeah.
No, that's definitely not even for this episode.
Yeah.
Because I don't think
But
we
I know
know.
like Ed had a career before this as a with reviews. He also
That's where
did
the Taylor
some.
Swift part comes in.
Gotcha. Sorry, let me not do that. Why'd you pick this book?
I picked the book because I had read it. I'd gotten a copy of it at Winter Institute back in February of this year. Came
So you can
home,
phone it in and not have to read it too closely. I got it. Okay.
exactly. I don't have to really know. No, it's kind of the exact opposite. So I came home from Winter Institute and I was excited to have that book because I knew Ed from years past, which we'll maybe talk about. And I've always really, really liked him. Like I just really like him. And he's like a really good reader, very broad reader, very smart guy, just super nice. And I
Kind of
really
annoyingly smart.
annoyingly smart. And
Yeah.
I loved his first book, Personal Days. It's very like tricksy and kind of fun and about like office, sort of an office novel from that period of like when corporations bought out creative enterprises and then fucked them dry. And I like that book. So this big one all of a sudden is here. I didn't know he was going to be there until like right beforehand. And when I came home, I got COVID. That was when I had my COVID time. So I was just lying in bed most of the time and I couldn't watch TV for some reason. I was like, couldn't find a way to focus. And this book, Reading the Galley, was the only thing I could kind of focus on, mostly because it is so varied. Like the different parts shift and there's different tones to it. And it doesn't follow like just one kind of narrative thread. So like my jumbled ass brain that was like feverish and dream ridden mapped onto it pretty well. And every second of the way I loved it. And I talked to like the U of R about having him come here and give a reading when it came out. But to be honest, like that was all through a COVID cloak. Like my memory of it, even like I went to do the introduction when he read here on Monday, I was like, oh, I remember just a vague thing. I don't remember any specifics very clearly. And then I started looking, I was like, yeah, that's right. I remember that. I remember that. I remember some recollection. But even after I read it and I knew reading it on COVID was not going to help, I was like, my memory's fucked. I really want to reread this book. And like having read it one time is sort of like, okay, I've got the basis. And then the sort of fun stuff can come on the second reading because there are a lot of like dropped in connections or motifs or echoes, whatever you want to frame it. So that's mainly why. And that it's a book that just came out and has gotten like immense like respect. It's on the New York Times notable 100 books, along with Not Even the Dead by Juan Gomez Barcena and Katie Whittemore. Just plug for Open Letter Books, which are all 30% off right now through January 6th. If you go to our website, you don't even have to use a code. But it's on there. It's on the PW's top 10 list. There's like various booktubers, like this guy that's metafictional meathead is his Instagram handle. it's his book of the year. He loves this. All these people love this book and have really resonated with. So rereading it, I felt like is a good idea. And I think it's something that I think you would like because it's very, the writing is crisp and like concrete and less like bonkers and abstracted, but it also does have a lot of plot lines, which similar to your Vegas book that you talked about, weaving those together and having them bounce off one another and how that's handled in here, I thought might be of interest to you in terms of your novel.
Thanks. So that's just a subtle kick in the ass, like, hurry up, please, get that done.
That? Yeah. I'm gonna write that one.
Yeah.
I told Ed, and this is maybe talking out of school or sharing something, but at the end of Mulligan Stew, or near the end, when I met you for lunch, and you had that drawing of the different components and how you were going to map it, and you said something about how Mulligan Stew had like broken your way of like framing and structuring things, and wanted to like re kind of work parts of it.
Yeah, just do the work.
Oh, it's all about just giving you stuff.
Yeah. So today, what we're 1 through 70.
1 through 70. It's 3 sections.
3 sections of the 3 different parts
Yeah, exactly. And I think the main one that we'll talk about in this first half is the party scene, because that's the longest section. It's it's part of the grouping called the Sins, and it is features our like main protagonist. And then we'll talk about the Korean Provisional Government stuff at the end. But honestly, I did want to start with Taylor Swift, and not to like shit on Taylor Swift, although my text messages to you and Kaya about how she must be stopped are set aside. But I saw this is all part of like a similar article where the thing that set me off was how she's like, I'm just there to support Travis and he supports me. And it's like, you guys don't need fucking support. You're like mega superstars. Like, give me a break. But there's this line in here, and this is where this comes. So she's talking about how people are complaining that she's showing on the games too much. And she said, I have no awareness if I'm being shown too much and pissing off a few dads, Brads, and Chads. And I feel personally attacked by this. I do watch the football. I have seen her on there. I don't care. I think that it might be not a good reason for young women to start watching football, or young men, or anyone to be like watching a sport that will probably die out with our generation because it's horrifically violent and like brain damaging. But the thing about Taylor Swift and about this whole the whole discussion of it, similar like the Otani discussion, is that there is no alternative. All we have now is mainstream media. And that ties into Ed. So we have there, everyone's going to be pumping the Taylor Swift narrative and Travis Kelce and where Otani's going to sign, which I will keep refreshing my phone throughout this just in case. But there's, because everyone does the same thing. Now, the back in the day, did you read alt weeklies growing up, like in San Francisco or in the Bay Area? Any of the free alt weekly papers?
Yes. Which
one was yours? Was it the?
I think we had one called the Metro, if I recall.
Oh, that seems possible. I'm seeing to East Bay Express. That was one that I remember someone working at, and that was a really good one. This the Bay Guardian too.
Bay Guardian. Okay, yeah, I don't remember the exact names of them, but yeah.
And like in Detroit, they had the Metro Times. These were all over. Portland Mercury. They're like big ones. Every big city had the Chicago Reader, which I think still exists, but they all had these alt weeklies that were free and they were outside of that mainstream discourse.
They were funky and they were weird and they were opinionated. And like it mentions in here, is one of the things I underlined in here, like talking about missing the days where there wasn't a digital archive of everything. And if you missed it, you missed it.
It was gone. Yeah. And they were like, all supported by, I mean, they're probably partially gone because of Craigslist, but they were mostly supported by really weird classified ads. Sometimes very sexual, like the phone sex lines or more.
Mostly, and
like erotic dating sites, but like, or dating personal ads. But there was the classifieds kept it going. So some of them would be super thick and it'd be like mostly ads. But like under that, there was like journalism being done, like real writers writing real things. In New York, there was the Village Voice, which Ed worked at, which is this kind of segue here. And then the New York Press. And the New York Press was like intentionally like a little bit more like not conservative, but a little bit more like on the independent thinking side of things. It was run by this guy, John Strasbaugh, who's like legendary, famous, really funny, smart guy. And they were intentionally like trying to be more Manhattan and more independent than the Village Voice. It would try and like pick at the Village Voice, like trying to pick on like the bigger sibling, because the Village Voice was everywhere but had like more of a metro Brooklyn-y sort of focus. But these magazines were invaluable to like culture. Like growing up in the Midwest, like when we had like access to them, they would like the Detroit Metro Times, like they had reviews of weird music that you wouldn't find because there's no websites, like the internet didn't exist. So reviews of weird music that wouldn't be in Rolling Stone or Spin, like articles that were like thoughtful and like provocative and op-edy, and lots of stuff about like culture, art shows, jazz shows, books, all that stuff was there. And then in personal days and in Ed's life, he left the Village Voice, but when it got bought, and it got bought by people who like ran Backpage, that like sex trafficking serial killer play box. They were the ones that owned the Village Voice and gutted it, and it's gone. And all these places were all bought up by these conglomerates, which brings me back to Taylor Swift. And bear with me here. So those I think were really, really interesting, and I think that they were like thoughtful. There's something that our culture is truly lacking in. We do not have a space for this right now, and don't tell me it's Lit Hub, because I will go on a rant. But
I was just about to say, like, that's what's gone wrong with things, because now because you'd think you could still have all that freedom because there's a digital space where you can explore and do whatever you want and like really push things. But it's almost become more restrictive and less interesting because, again, it's the ad revenue.
Yep.
And so you can't be controversial. You can't push anything. You can't stretch a little bit because I don't know if there's like there's almost like there's a corporate template that you have to stay within, like color with this color, this thickness, and I want it packaged like this. And if it's not that, we're not going to do it. And it needs to sound like this, and it needs to feel like this, and politically it needs to align with this, or we're not going to do it. And so it's just this small boxed in, there's nothing interesting there. There's no there.
Right. And they all, because as you mentioned, the ad revenue, a lot of these places run off of clicks. Like the number of clicks that you can get is the number of like how much you can charge for ad revenue. And they're like frequently set up to, bring together, what's the word I'm looking for, aggregate tons of articles. So like they become essentially content farms. And the one that ties back into Taylor Swift, because this article on Taylor Swift is from Sports Illustrated, was the Sports Illustrated story from that broke last week, where Sports Illustrated it was mostly just online. There's like a monthly magazine that's whatever, but the online stuff is truly a content farm to try and get people to click through Apple News or whatever. And it was discovered that a huge number of their articles were AI generated by AI created figures. So there was no real there. There was no there. It was just designed to like get people to click through by generating the most banal, cobbled together content that was online. Like this Taylor Swift article with these quotes might not have been written by a human being at all. And like we've gone from a world in which there was this thoughtful, like crazed, sort of impulsive assessment of culture through these alt weeklies to a point where it's like just a content farm of AI saying like there's a great example on Hang Up and Listen where they found that Gannett did this at one point too, got caught, and they had like a AI bot that would write Ohio high school football summaries of games, and it was like 13 of like the 40 articles that it wrote began with, you could call this a close encounter of the athletic kind. That was like the AI's joke, and it was one of the ways that it got found out. But like I feel like this book represents a sort of different place in this too. This will come clear later, but I'm making a little bit of a thematic leap here. But in the sense that like the core of this book is an unpublished translation that is about a secret society. That sort of modality is wonderful and works with like the Pynchon books and like things that sort of tie into that vague line. But it also, I find it very like fun to read about because we don't have anything like that anymore. We have like entirely made up bullshit and like the Democrat and Chronicle here in Rochester, which is not a real paper.
Yeah. I don't know, that down in the lobby of the hotel I'm staying at, they have this thing called the Epoch Times, EPOCH. I don't know if you've seen that periodical, but That is fun to read. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Which religious group is that? Because it comes up. So this comes up again in the book later. I'm not going to give it. This isn't a huge spoiler, but the Moonies, the history of the Moonies is part of this novel, and they're the ones who started the Washington Times, which is also one of these sort of alt weekly like alternative papers that, but it has like had like a very specific sort of like funding source behind it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll look at it real quick. About Us, Epoch Times. It
It's
says it's real news.
yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know. This is the picture that comes up when it says About Us, and that just looks like a nightmare. That looks like a nightmare.
That's scary.
That's
I
a
don't
lot
like
of
that
suits.
at all. Those are the Brads and Chads. For anyone listening, is like a group of white dudes that look like car dealers standing around a desk.
I don't know.
But
They're about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the pursuit of happiness. Woo! America.
Don't believe
America.
it. Yeah, that's bullshit. Anyone who says that is not someone you can trust at all. But like there's it's so we've gone through this weird world. And I think like one of the reasons that going back to wanting to read this book, part of it with Ed too is that Ed's he's like at the crux of a lot of these things. He was one of the co-founders of The Believer, which I think is, I mean, I haven't seen the most recent relaunch, but has remained one of the more interesting literary magazines.
Oh, when they first came out, I devoured
Same.
The Believer. It was that was interesting because there'd be things
right.
that are like, I don't agree with this at all, but this is lovely the way it's written, and it's really challenging the way I think.
So he reminded me,
nothing just challenge. And I don't know if it's like that San Francisco spirit that allows that to take place or not. Like, let your freak flag fly, be weird, whatever. Like be punk, like counterculture, whatever. Like, I don't know if it's that spirit that allowed that to take place or what, or if it's Eggers saying like, I'll throw money at it. Don't worry about it. But it was lovely. And the illustration style and the house style was really cool.
The guy that did a lot of those, his wife went to school here at the U of R in the cultural studies program. She was a grad student there. They live in Syracuse now, and he was like Mark Mulroney. He was a good friend for a while when they were living here. Very cool guy. Does like really weird art, including things with baseball cards and Archie comics. He's very cool, but he was one of the ones that drew a lot of those. He's great. But yeah, it has the right vibe. It has all that stuff. I love to find that spirit, and this book kind of has that spirit to me a little bit.
Which part of the book has that spirit? Because I feel like we obviously we get the three different kind of motifs, or not the right word, but the three different styles.
Yeah.
Which one for you is providing that
particular spark right now, I think, is in this section that we read within the Same Bed, Different Dreams section about the Korean Provisional Government, where it's like educational, but also clearly a little off. Like some of the stuff is real, and you can look it up and go through a deep dive of it. And other stuff is like a little bit manipulated to like come to certain points. And there's something about that I find very intriguing. But I think as a whole, like the way that they kind of bounce off one another, and this will be, I think this become more of something to talk about as we go through the book in later episodes. But like the way that it all works together is trying to create something that's a different way of creating a traditional narrative. Because for the most part, that second section, the one that we'll talk about now, about Soon Sheen, who works at a tech company called GLOAT. He goes to a book party for a Korean like enfant terrible named Echo. He's going to go by the name Echo, which is also very like Pynchonian and telling in its way. The Soon's daughter is named Story. They have a dog named Sprout. There's a lot of like that kind of name thing going on. But Echo is being published by this press, and he has one novel that's coming out, and then a second one that's supposedly not finished. That's called Same Bed, Different Dreams, which our protagonist Soon somehow finds in his briefcase or his bag on his way home and starts reading. And that is the one that is the third part of the section we had. So we started with 2333 about what is history, and I think we can leave that for later. And then we have the long party scene, and then we get him part of what he reads when he gets home from that manuscript. And I think that like that second part, the party part, is relatively straightforward, conventional sort of writing. Like what you say is like, this is a this is a crafted, well put together novel.
Yeah,
Everything works well because it's like spaceless, but yet has like enough elements of like what this restaurant is like to create the ambiance of it. There's like a rambunctiousness to it that I know we talked to Ed, and his interview will be on the audio version of this. And we talked about it a bit, but it is influenced by the recognitions party scenes where like characters sort of pop up, do a little thing, and then are gone. There's not like this continual line, which is something that I've seen in like a few other writers, but like
we talked about that briefly with JR. I think they're called like French scenes, where it's just very quick into the scene, out of the scene, boom, boom, without like big grand curtains coming down and up, like these little like snippets of like passing through. There's a lot of action, a lot of movement.
It's like watching an Altman film.
Yeah. What really impressed me from this first 70 pages, I don't know enough about 2333 to know what its purpose serves just yet. Right. And we will once we get like a set, but it's pretty clear how the sins is going to function and how same bed, different dreams, the dreams is going to function. What I like about it is that you get a different style of writing, and each one is nuanced for what it's doing all at the same time. And so to have that like flexibility and to be pulled in these three different directions as an artist, to have something that's stitched together and works, but is also pulling in different directions in order to do that magic trick, that's really cool. Really impressive.
Yeah, very, very much so. So you're a fan so far?
So far, yeah. We still plenty of time to lose me though. So
yeah, 420, 30 pages left for sure. But let's see, is there a specific thing you want to talk about with relation to the party scene? I have a few things that are marked that I think are like crucial for.
Well, it seems like it's a world that you know really well, right? Because it's like this, like they're there to talk about the book they're putting out. One, it's a really weird publishing house. It's very niche, to say the least.
What is there? 3 interest Malaysian cooking that you can make only in a rice pot. Graphic novels about politics using woodcuts, and very strange translated fiction.
Yeah.
It's a little close to home.
Yeah, probably hits a little close to home.
Yeah, so this he did tell me the inspiration for this particular scene over dinner after his reading was that at one point in time he was invited by Dan Simon of 7 Stories to go to a literary dinner for one of their Korean authors, whose name is Wang Suk-yoon, I think. I forget what it is exactly. But they had this big Korean author, and so they invited Ed there, and he's like, this party was kind of sparked by that dinner, where like it's like the certain literati, everyone's sort of posturing in their own different way. There's also like the kind of, and it is kind of joking and poking fun at that whole publishing scene, but then also within this one, the like Asian American artist.
Well, the sense of humor here is great, right? Because here's a Korean author. Let's go to a Korean restaurant in America.
Korean way.
Yeah, called like Admiral Yi. Like it's like, oh god, everything's like super cringe about it, right? And then and then there's all the like racial jokes that are sprinkled throughout it, and then just like the artifice of like making it look like it's nautical themed, even though it's not on the water, and then just just everything about it just being like, what, go ahead.
Oh, Admiral Yi too then ties into Yi Song, the poet that's in the 3rd part too.
Yeah. So I like that, like kind of that like I think it really set the tone of like what kind of book are we going to be getting, and even starting with like what is history, which I thought was really cool, and like even like some of the subtle jokes, like when I believe it was Daisy talks about being in Japan, or I had my nails done in Japan. And then the answer, if I recall, was you only live twice.
Yeah.
Right. Which makes it sound like, hey, you got to live it up while you're there. But I don't know if any of the listeners ever watch any of the Sean Connery, James Bond films, but You Only Live Twice is like one of the most like cringy, racist. I mean, they're all pretty bad and racist, but this one's like, when you rewatch it now, it's like, this is one of those, like, I cannot believe this is still made. It's wonderfully bad at how insensitive it is. like he literally becomes a Japanese man so he can marry a Japanese lady, and like oh my God, it's wonderful how bad it. And so like that line being thrown in there while they're at this, you know, Korean American restaurant for the Korean author, and then the way that the conversations are going, I thought was just what a lovely little like stab by Ed there. That was really good. Really good.
Is amazing. I'm not going to read it all, but this is just the beginning of a paragraph for the Bond film. While attending a sumo tournament.
Yep.
That's all.
Absolutely. What else would you do in Japan?
Yeah. So in terms of characters and placing them, like Soon is very like genuine. He's a former writer, so he ties in our like phrase on former writer sort of vibe. But
everybody likes what he did.
I know,
everybody remembers what he did.
Everybody remembers what he did, and his age. It seems like to be ages ago within the context of the book. He wrote a short story collection that's like gone, you know, remaindered, barely out there seemingly, and then also some articles where he named
let's not be like, we can be really clever about every single thing about it, but I mean, even that is called Pretenders.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So does that tell us a little bit about Soon and how he's feeling about? I'm curious if that's going to step like his interactions with this future novel by Echo, if that's going to change Soon in any kind of way.
So I don't want to give anything necessarily away, but there's one note about him in addition to the writing part. So he has those great acronyms, like I forget like what they all were.
Nervous Asian laugh is one of them, right?
And then there's like the love at first sight. Laughs. Yeah. And then there was another one that was like unfinished masterpiece, but I can't think of what that one was. But there's a sly reference in here where it talks about not having how he always brings up his wife because he doesn't wear a wedding ring. And he doesn't wear a wedding ring because he doesn't have a ring finger on his left hand.
Yeah. And his wife is a business owner, a very successful business owner of nail salons. So there's kind of that irony there as well. Right.
So that part's key. The publisher Tanner Slow is funny and like over the
press.
top. Slow press, which is wonderful. It sort of like ties into this podcast. And then there's what's her name? The translator. I just blanked.
It wasn't Gemma's in there.
Gemma's his cousin, who's married to like, the Korean.
She's a model, and then Hans is the husband. Yeah.
But what was the woman who's the translator that he knew from before, who we just mentioned early on, and now I'm blanking on her name.
Because we had Daisy and Monk.
Daisy.
And then, okay.
Yeah, so Daisy is the translator of Echo's books, and they have a past together. And then there's like someone that he had dated, also someone who's like great at brand management. So you've got all the like the components of like that sort of New York cultural lit party right there too, which is fun. I found the scene. I mean, rereading it this time, it's very entertaining. And then the thing that I think maybe in addition to like anything you want to say about their specific stuff, like one thing I noticed, I can't find any reference to a T.S. Kim. So on page like 22, it references they say like, oh, we really liked your piece on your pull no punches a reappraisal of T.S. Kim's 1985 novel Man in Korean Costume. I wasn't able to find that. And if it does exist and that's true, let me know. Otherwise, I think that's made up. But it comes back and is
look at the last line in that paragraph, right? Back then, you either read something or you missed it forever.
That's true, and goes back to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. That there's no digital archive, right? It's pre-Y2K,
right?
Practically pre-internet. Yeah.
So, and it does reference Paul Rubens' painting sketch depicting a man he saw in Antwerp, clad in a voluminous robe. That shows up over and over again. I could not get anything outside of there. But then some of the other things are really truly true, like when Tanner refers to Soon's book as Alice Munro meets H.H. Munro. H.H. Munro is a real true author who was funny and satirical and wrote with a sense of humor under a name. I think it was, I want to say Saki, but I don't want to be wrong about that. But it's on here somewhere. Yeah, Saki, S-A-K-I. He's an American writer and had tons and tons of short stories. So some of it's real and some of it might not be completely true and can be fabricated. Now the other, like the main event, aside from them like kind of mingling, and he meets the author, he's gets this, ends up getting with the book references.
He's got a case of gums right now, though, right? The Sins is good, but he's got a case of the gums. Great unfinished masterpiece. Yeah.
Great unfinished masterpiece.
Syndrome.
And they refer to it as a novel in 3 novels. And that's what they keep referring to it as, which is also the book that we're holding. So as a synecdoche or a little whatever that would be, like as a sort of way of reading the whole thing.
But even in self-referencing the book that we're holding in our hands, it says brilliant, right? Like there's still that kind of like, wry humor happening here as well.
Yeah, it's like it's not overdone. It's very subtle. So like, I know it gets a lot of Pynchon references this book has so far for, I think, that expansiveness and some of the names. But the Pynchon jokes are so large generally. They're so cartoonish and like writ on the page to be jokes. And a lot of this is like in that subtlety and in the sort of land, like the atmosphere of it. Now, when they're there, they do play a game in which you roll I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a dice with 14 sides. 6 are flat and 8 are triangles, or 6 are squares, I mean, and 8 are triangles. And when it comes up to roll, each one of these little sides has a Chinese character on it. And when it comes to one of those characters, whoever rolled it has to perform whatever that says. So one of them is like dance with no music, sing a song or recite a poem, drink 3 shots, like anything. And then soon gets the one that's like, tell us a secret.
Yeah.
I think something basically like that. And and that's when he like essentially blacks out.
It's just redacted.
Yeah, redacted.
Later, waiting for the train, we just skip right to there. Yeah.
It's like I don't really remember what he said. I don't remember what I said. The whole scene starts to take on like a almost ominous vibe, and when he thinks back on it too, find that section really quick. That to me is like horrifying. Like I'd be like, man, I'm sorry I said some really stupid shit that I should not have said. Like there's not a chance that I'm at a drinking party and you had me tell a secret and it doesn't come out as something that like nobody should be dealing with. So yeah, so here's the paragraph on 39. My mind fixated on the game at the Admiral Yi. What had I said when the jury told me to, quote, reveal secret things? I remember time stopping as I spoke, the looks on their faces, appalled, amused. My exact words had slipped away. At some point, Daisy patted my arm as Monk or Yuko rubbed my shoulders, trying to comfort me or hold me back. So there's that element of like, you're not that sinister, but like there's something there that's of interest.
I find it interesting too, because in some ways it echoes what we're about to get with this idea of same bed being a hidden history of Korea. Yeah. Right. And then and just now we have a hidden history in Soon's,
our character.
Wow, it's almost like that was on purpose.
Probably. I wonder about that. So,
like we said, kind of annoyingly smart. This Ed Park guy. I don't know about this. Yeah.
It was. This isn't to the like. He really did put together a lot of time on this too, and like.
Oh no!
He said it took him 9 years to write. So being able to like layer in like specific things like that is really, it's very noticeable. But it reminds me of I think I may have told this joke on here before, but Harvey Picar. We were talking about Harvey because I hooked Harvey Picar up with Ed to write a review for the Village Voice, and then Harvey, because Harvey was a little bit crazy, called like way too many times, and ended up Ed being like, Chad, can you tell Harvey to like cool it? But Harvey would call me every week, and he would go on these long rants about whatever. But one of them that I remember specifically was a Pynchon rant. He's like, this guy, it was like, I think it was when Against the Day was going to come out. And he's like, this guy, people think this motherfucker is so goddamn smart. He takes like 20 years to write a fucking book and then names the capital of North Dakota. And everyone's like, oh my God, what a genius. It's like he took 20 years to go to the library and look at a map. on the internet. But very true. I don't know if there's anything else from the party scene that's like necessary to like cover here. It's a good one. I mean, GLOAT's probably going to become more important later on.
Sure.
Oh,
well, also like if you look at like this idea of again, this kind of echoes again, right? Like how the little bit we get of Korea in here in the next part, where it's time to modernize. Like the old ways need to die and something new needs to take its place, or that kind of thing that's happening. Right. And then if you look at Sun's career, like he typed his book on a typewriter, right? And then there's no digital archive, and now he's at this like technologically whatever GLOAT thingy-majig. Like his history is completely changed from the old ways to embracing the new ways and being like, man, I kind of miss the old. I kind of miss the.
Yeah, there was that's interesting too. And in terms of like the caesura where he like doesn't like explain what he says at that point in time, there was this was in one of there are like 3 main reviews of this book: the LA Times, New York Times, and the Washington Post. In one of them, when I was reading to do the introduction, it referenced the fact that our book, the full book, Same Bed, Different Dreams, has no punctuation, but inside the book it's same bed, comma, different dreams, as if that comma could represent the sort of bifurcation of Korea as a whole, or like into the 2 sides, 2 states. And that caesura does that too, and what you're saying does that too. He's like writing typewriter, then transitions to this other thing, but they're like there's a space between them, or a gap of some sorts. That's how the parts. But I don't know if there's anything else. Like Echoes, the bit describing him is pretty funny. Like it seems like an outrageous like caricature of a wild like Welbeckian author.
We've got the next hot thing. Just yeah, kind of like
a little bit. But yeah, then there's like blah 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 blah.
Well, how often are there these authors? Well, there's the joke. He's the next Rumi.
yeah. Like name and like Rumi is like who's that?
But no, like there's always going to be some there's not enough room for many of them, but there's always going to be a couple of authors where like they're like this tidal wave, and like you can ride the tidal wave for a little bit, but then it's just like gone, and then on to the next one, right? Like, like maybe they do have something great, but like there's only enough room for like a good author, or like a good book.
I was actually thinking about
that.
But
no, there's so many good authors and there's so many good books. You have to put all the attention onto one or just a couple. Like you can't spread it too thin, right?
Yeah. And that's because
and it's like each publisher picks who's the one they're going to push. Like that's going to be our, and like, yeah, we love all these other books. We love all these other authors, but like, yeah, screw you guys. Like,
yeah,
we don't have time for you now, dear. We're going to do this one right now. Like,
but those other books represent the content farm of like getting enough things out there to be able to get enough to be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that last night, actually, in terms of a post, which is the post is about the problem with doing posts, but of like things I'd like to do with 3%. And one of them was to look at the second book to people who are much hyped for their debut. Like I had a couple very specific examples in mind of people who like, and I don't even know that some of them have a second book, but they were like all the rage for the moment. And you're like, okay, what's next? And like, it's been 7-8 years. And I wonder, and like, Ed sort of, I suppose, falls into that category, but like this, I think as that example is like really well done. And I don't think that the other ones won't be necessarily, but I'm just curious about it as like, the hype machine exists. And then is it just that one thing?
Yeah, but I kind of feel like in some ways, like
Echo has that pressure on you.
No, but Echo has that feeling of that type of artist, right? Where it's even like just changing the name to just to a 4-letter word, and
and I like to do that. Like he does fit into that like all the rumors that cannot be true sort of thing. He's drunk all the time, impregnated 100 women, banned in North Korea, jail, like all the like the crazy stories. And it's one of those things where if people said it, you just neither confirm nor deny. Neither confirm nor deny what actually happened. But Anyway, so enough of the party section, which ends with him getting on the Metro North, which is a grand train. His Dog's Kill is right around the point where I was on the Metro North just a couple weeks ago when I went to New York. So get that place quite well. The next section, the last part, is we get Dream 1, 1905 through 1937, in which we're introduced to a number of real life writers and people that were part of the Korean diaspora and the Korean Provisional Government, which was founded in 1919 with the explicit sort of or stated goal of like pushing back against Japanese occupation of Korea and establishing like an independent and free Korea. So some of the people like I mentioned here are like Syngman Rhee, who's the first president of this and who goes on to be one of the I think prime minister is the correct term for South Korea, or for Korea at a point in time. Then there is the poet Yi Sang, who Ed talked about, and has a poem in here that is bizarre because it's like numbers written backwards.
Numbers with
the dots in the middle, and it's like a poem in statement only. There's also a reference to where to go.
Wasn't he dying of tuberculosis?
Yeah, they all seem to die of tuberculosis.
Which I found was interesting because they talked about him being like, the first, quote, modern poet.
He's the first,
for Korea.
Maybe conflating him with the other person too. So
okay.
Yi Sang is like one of the big poets.
I might have that wrong.
Yeah, well, close. But 50 is section 11. These are all numbered sections. 11 is Yi Kwang-soo, the exile, and it says Yi Kwang-soo is Korea's first modern writer.
Yeah, sorry.
The Korean Provisional Government. He helps write their sort of declaration, blah, 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 blah. Now, he is a real author. And not only is he a real author, but his book, The Soil, which is about this fat, is published by Delki Archive as part of the Korean library series. So seeing his name even the first time around, I was like, that's really familiar. And then I like Google, and I was like, oh, that's The Soil guy. I've looked at that book a million times. It's like a big fat, like historical novel from 1932, I believe, somewhere around there. So he's introduced. We get like Na Ungyu. I'm not sure how to say that.
Whatever it is, you nailed it. It's perfect.
Yeah, totally perfect. No notes. Always. Who's referred to as the locust, and he gets caught for his charges for his role in the March 1st movement. And what role, he wonders? They say he made a movie and must relinquish the film, but a movie didn't do anything like that. So they have a secret document that the Korean police, or the Japanese police, I suppose, would like to acquire. So that shows up. But we get just like a series of these, and it's like almost hard to keep track of who's who. Like, and it flips back and forth between a couple of them, specifically that Na, and then also Yi Kwang-soo. Those two kind of flips back and forth, and we get their sort of stories going along. And then Syngman Rhee, who comes to America, gets involved with like Woodrow Wilson, thinks Woodrow Wilson's going to help make for a free Korea, and Wilson's just like not interested, does not really take him up on that at all. So so you get like this layout of all these people who are part of like what truly was a real organization.
I really like the way the way that flipped with the like promise of being in America and what is possible, and then the reality of going back, and then, hey, remember me? Like letters come back, or like nothing's answered. Goes to Paris and are not received, like physically not received. So I really liked that, how succinct and like great that juxtaposition was of those two things. That's
Absolutely.
Really cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. There are a couple of things in here that I think are worth really pointing out. One is that the Yi Sang, the poet who dies at 26, which is twice 13, as it mentions. And he's the crazy poet who like the police, encounter him, and they're like, isn't it true you published a similar poem in 1931 in Japanese, only with the numbers printed normally? And Yi Sang nods. The police say, why? And he shrugs and says, did the straight line murder the circle? Like he's got like those kind of like weird quippy sort of things. And then his section ends with saying like he did have ulterior motives. He wanted to pierce the heart of Japan. That's why he went to Tokyo. He needed to get close enough to stab it with incantations. Yet other more potent poems never published, thousands of works that no sane mind could contemplate. The Japanese destroy his papers without even a glance. Yi Sang dies at 26, twice 13, an undercover operative for the Korean Provisional Government. So that is stated very declaratively in like that he was. And part of his poetry that's referenced earlier is that people go mad when they read it. And that ties into like that's just so crazy. They're like, this is, you know, making our minds explode. And Syngman retells like a crazy like story, like a what do you call it? Like a myth of like how Korea was formed. And that comes from a book called The Wonders, which could be translated as, it says, this makes the Samguk Yusa.
Dreams.
What's that?
Dreams.
Dreams. And then that book is described, so it has like lots of these tales, all this kind of crazy stuff. It's like stories left out of the official history of the three kingdoms. It's all these different parables, visions, strange stuff. And then the line that I think is like the thesis for this book is the top of 63. The book lacks all proportion. The heroic, the whimsical, and the grotesque all get equal billing. And I think that that's sort of like a good like sort of thread for what could be coming as well, in terms of maybe not like lacks all proportion sounds negative, but I think in the sense of like it includes whatever. And like this history includes like all these different moving pieces and these parts. It does not completely refine. And when we had the conversation with Ed, and you can hear this on the audio version, which will be available on Friday, December 8th, wherever you get your podcast, primarily Apple and Spotify, he does talk about putting in so much stuff and the things he pulled out and things he didn't end up including. He told me a story before you got there about a scene that included a movie that James Dean and Ronald Reagan were in. It was a show. It was like an anthology show, and they're in one show together. And he was writing about that and then decided just not to include it. But he like was willing to like throw anything in here that made sense to be in here. And that kind of feels like this, you know, this mythological, not mythological, but like myth-making, fable-esque sort of like book that exists that they're all kind of drawing from.
Yeah, good start to the season. I'm really curious to get back to the 2333 to see what that is and how it fits. And so I'm really excited for that. Yeah.
Oh, me too. I am very much without saying anything more than that.
Do we agree the correct is 2333, just like 2666?
That's how he said it. That's how he said it. So,
well, if Ed said it, it is done.
Yep, exactly. There we go. So did you have any other final thoughts or a quote that you particularly liked?
Yeah, I've got my line for the day, line of the week, primed and ready to go. It's on page 19.
Okay.
So they're talking about books and stuff. And he talks about his first book, Pretenders. Pretenders was a rarefied creation, unavailable outside the U.S. and more often than not, unavailable inside the U.S. as well.
I love that line. I marked that too. Mine, because I'm a juvenile, is on 66, which it would have been better if it was somewhere else. But it says in real life, it's talking about Yi Sang's novel. It says in real life, Yi Sang and Gum, his wife, opened a tea house together called Swallow. Its street number is 69. And that's where we're at with this right now. So for next week, we go up to page 155. We'll probably have, and that will take us through one more set of all three sections. So we get extradition to Gambrinus, 1966, which is a longer 2333 thing. So that might make it possible to discuss that in more detail next time. And then the sins, that takes place in August, and then a section on Same Bed, Different Dreams, which covers, which years is this? 1901 through 1909. So back in time. Very cool, man. And for anyone who's listening, wherever you are, you can subscribe if you're watching us live. Hit the subscribe button, like us, give us a thumbs up. You can always follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you can subscribe and rate the podcast. That really helps out with people being able to discover stuff in this AI generated content farm. How many of these podcasts that are out there are AI generated? I wonder, in this world. So if you like real people, do that. You can follow us on Twitter at 2 Month Review, Brian Wood _, which I know you don't use, and Chad W Post, which I barely use. Otherwise, you got anything? Stay tuned if you're listening to the audio because you'll have an interview with Ed Park coming up next. And I have nothing else. You got anything, Brian?
Nope. I'm just going to swallow some more coffee.